Hey there, this is Lexine Faras, and welcome to Crash Course World History. The Byzantine Empire is located right here in the Mediterranean basin. The whole reason why the Byzantine Empire were able to maintain themselves for that long was the theme system. The theme system enabled the Byzantine forces to mobilize quickly and resist Islamic advances and support the political order and social organization of the empire from 8th to 12th century. So before the Emperor Constantine, before he ruled in the 4th century AD, Byzantium practiced many polytheistic beliefs. So once Emperor Constantine began his rule in 4th century AD, Christianity's influence began to spread in the Eastern Roman Empire. However, Theodosius I and Justinian the Great, they were husband and wife, did not agree with Christianity and heavily encouraged the practice of Eastern Orthodoxy. They did so much as to outlawing the practice of Roman Catholic, and Eastern Orthodox became such a prominent religion that many smaller sectors of religions that later emerged into the Byzantine Empire all fell under Eastern Orthodoxy. A great division happened between the West Roman Catholic churches and the Greek Orthodox churches in the East, also known as the Great Schism that happened in 1054. They divided because of two main issues. They were religious and theological issues. An example was iconoclastic movements in the 8th and 9th century, where the Roman Catholics thought it was appropriate for religious images to be an aid to devote to their god, whereas the eastern part did not agree so much. Also, minor differences between beliefs and teachings in their mass differed, and they didn't really like each other. Roman popes and Byzantine patriarchs didn't really agree with their rights and powers and authorities, so in the end they both excommunicated each other, which was pretty petty. Trade revolved around the Byzantine capital of Constantinople, home to many artists and merchants that manufactured fabrics, textiles, jewelry, and most importantly, silk. In fact, Byzantium became the principal supplier of silk within the Mediterranean basin. Because Constantinople had direct commercial links within the basin, they served as the western anchor of a Eurasian trading network that revived silk roads from classical times. What also fueled the Byzantium economy were banks and partnerships that were utilized, which allowed merchants to pool their resources and limit risks.
Constantinople was the capital of the metropolitan city. By the 14th century, it was the most important political and military center of Eastern Mediterranean. Then it was the dominant economic and commercial center in Eastern Mediterranean. The city of Constantinople had sites of relaxation and exercise and hygienic baths. It had taverns, restaurants, and the perfect social gatherings. It also had entertainment, which attracted many people. Greek replaced Latin in the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine scholars drew inspiration from the New Testament, which was written in Greek. Also, classical Greece was useful for philosophy, literature, many education that had science, grammar, and writing that was based on classical Greece. The Byzantine turned its attention from the Mediterranean to the Eastern Europe and Russia. Through political, commercial, and cultural relations, Byzantine influenced the history of Slavic people. Russians converted to Christianity and joined the Orthodox Church, which was practiced in the Byzantine Empire.
So what is Caesaropopism? It was a policy that was initiated by Constantine, which is where an emperor not only ruled as a secular lord, but also played an active and prominent role in religious affairs, which allowed them to have absolute power. Justinian was an early Byzantine emperor, and he dreamt of rebuilding the Roman Empire. He worked all the time and was very energetic. His wife Theodora helped him with the ruling, and he ordered Hagia Sophia to be made. He had a codification of Roman law, which was called the Body of Civil Law. It was a source of legal inspiration throughout Roman law in Western Europe. As we mentioned earlier, the Hagia Sophia was ordered to be made by Justinian, and is part of a program to reconstruct the damages of Constantinople, which were made by the riots of high taxes. It is one of the largest domes and the most important building of Constantinople, and now is used as a museum.
Moving Moving on to chapter 21, Worlds Apart, the Americas and Oceania, we are going to be talking about the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Olmecs, and everything. As everyone knows, the Aztecs are known for the human sacrifices they make to their devotion to their god. Dating back from the Olmecs, the Mesoamerican Mexica regarded the sacrifices of human beings as essential to the world's survival. Their predecessors didn't take this so radically, but the Mexica did. Huitzilopochtli was a war god that the Mexica devoted to when they were sacrificing their humans. They considered this war god as their patron deity, and as military success began to increase, the priest of Huitzilopochtli's cult demanded sacrificial victims to keep the god pleased. So some of these victims included criminals, bad people, but they were an essential thing to do. So human beings being sacrificed was an everyday thing. Due to extreme isolation, societies in the Americas and Oceania world were organized in a peaceful way due to the little invasion that allowed societies to be more organized and well-rounded with their intellect. However, isolation came with a lot of dangers, such as the lack of interactions between peoples from distant lands, so the lack of spreading ideas and cultural activity and all these things that come with spreading one-to-one interactions. Another danger included that they were all dependent on agriculture and that they lacked the knowledge to know how climate affected the agricultural field. On the same page, both of them developed sophisticated agricultural practices, whereas other groups maintained a more nomadic hunter and gatherer lifestyle. They also developed their own distinct architecture, art, and other cultural characteristics without any outside influence. They all had dangers of overpopulation, disease, or lack of resistance to diseases that they were never exposed to. In the Mexican society, military elite were showered with wealth and honor. They ate the best food, they dressed in the most luxurious clothing that were bright and colorful. They received land grants and tributes from commoners, and even the most successful warriors, they would form a council with selected members who would fill government positions, deal with public affairs, and etc.
The Toltecs began to migrate in mostly Tula, which was in modern-day Mexico in the 8th century. They used the river Tula to irrigate their crops such as maize, beans, and peppers. They had an urban population of 60,000 people and a rural population of 60,000 people. They had a powerful army that protected the state from invasions, and it was a wealthy city with people living in houses made of adobe, stone, and mud. Aztecs, known as Mexica, were powerful people, and they conquered neighbors and demanded tribute from subjects. They had military ruling Tenochtitlan, and they had campaigns of imperial expansion. Under the rule of Itzcoatl and Montezuma, they conquered Oaxaca and made it the city of the Mexican Empire. The Inca originated in Lake Titicaca in the 13th century. Under the rule of Pachacuti, there were military campaigns that expanded Inca's authority. They expanded from southern to northern highlands and even in the Chimu Kingdom and had a population of 11.5 million. Some religious and social structures of the Aztec and Incas were that the Aztecs warriors were at the highest of the social status, and Incas had different classes of people. Aztecs had many gods, and the sun god was the most important, and the Incas also believed in the sun god, and they called it Inti. The Aztecs also did human sacrifices.
Inhabitants of Oceania built and maintained flourishing societies of their own. People of Australia created networks of trade and exchange between hunting and gathering societies. Icelanders built complex agricultural societies. By the 16th century, large island groups had sizable populations, hierarchical society orders, and hereditary chief rulers. Tenochtitlan was a populated city that was in an island of Lake Texcoco. It was very attractive to the Spanish, not only because it was surrounded by water and it had a lot of wealth, but because it was built in the middle of a swamp. The societies are really close to each other. Some are even surrounded by each other. They could be influencing each other by trade and by migration. The Aztecs were able to build their large empire because of their size and power of their army and their geographic location.
The Ottomans started as a group of semi-nomadic Turks founded by Osman Bey, who encouraged them to become Muslim religious warriors known as Ghazi. The Ottomans' convenient place on the borders of the Byzantine Empire allowed them to wage holy war on the Byzantine, and when Mehmed II captured Constantinople, they renamed it Istanbul. Mehmed the Conqueror was truly important in the expansion of the empire, and he established a military and economic presence in the Mediterranean basin and West Europe. Suleiman the Magnificent was also an important figure in the Ottoman Empire. He promoted the expansion of the Ottoman in Southwest Asia and Europe, and also turned the Ottomans into a major naval power. As the size of the Ottoman Empire increased, as did their territories and victories, they attained soldiers by creating slave troops through a system known as devshirme, in which they required Christian families from the Balkans to contribute young boys to the Islamic army. These young boys were trained as Islamic soldiers and were known as janissaries, who were very loyal to the Sultan and ready to employ new military technologies. However, they fell behind in military technologies later on and relied too much on Europeans to bring them their weapons. This caused the downfall of their military. In the Safavid Empire, Shah Ismail laid claim to the Persian imperial title. He gained strong support from the Persian people by claiming he was the descendant of a Sufi religious leader named Sufi al-Din, and changed their religious preferences according to what was popular with the people before settling on 12 or schism. Safavid propaganda suggested that Shah Ismail was the 12th leader, and this was accepted by his Turkish followers known as the Kizilbash, who believed that since he was the 12th religious leader, he would make them invincible to their enemies in battle. In the Mughal Empire, Zahir al-Din Muhammad, aka Babur, was the son of a Fargan prince and envisioned transforming his inheritance into a glorious Asian empire. Because he was unable to extend his power past Kabul, he turned his sights towards India and captured Delhi. By the time he died, the Mughal Empire expanded from Kabul to the border of Bengal. Another figure in the building of the Mughal Empire was Akbar, who created a centralized administration and whose military campaigns expanded the empire past Babur's own military expeditions. The height of the Mughal Empire was reached under Aurangzeb, who pushed the empire deep into South India and unified the empire under the Islamic religion. Religious tensions between Hindus and Muslims in India were high, though, and the leaders of the Mughals struggled to find the correct solution to the problems between the two.
The success of Islamic rulers was based on their military and their ability to gain the loyalty of their people. The strong militaries of the Safavid and Ottoman empires increased their land, which came with the benefits of an enlarged population, land for cultivation, and control of the trade routes. The Mughal and Safavid empires used religion to gain the loyalty of their people and to prevent religious disputes. Overall, devotion to Islam encouraged rulers to extend their faith, and through autocratic authority, the rulers of Islamic empires reflected steppe traditions. Example of this was how the early emperors usually did as they pleased, irrespective of religion and social norms. One factor that led to the collapse of the Islamic State was the dynastic conflicts they faced because of suspicion and fighting among competing members of the ruling houses. Another one of the main factors that led to the collapse was how Muslim clerics strongly objected the politics and policies that in any way affronted to Islamic belief.
Hi, I'm Yuvia, and I'm going to be talking about Latin America's independence. Colonial legacy prevented industrialization of Latin American states. Spain and Portugal never encouraged industries. Creole elites continued land-based economies after independence. British didn't invest in industries in Latin America, which meant that they had no market for manufactured goods. With Lincoln's election, 11 southern states seceded from the Union. Southerners believed their economy of cotton and slaves was self-sufficient. Northerners fought to preserve the Union as much as opposition to slavery. In 1863, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation made abolition a goal of the war. In 1865, the industrial North defeated the agricultural South. The war ended slavery and haste authority of the federal government.
Economic expansion in the United States. British capitals were crucial for the early development of the U.S. industries. Foreign capitals supported textiles, steel, and iron railroads, which helped create an industrial rival that soon surpassed Britain. Railroads integrated national economy by the late 19th century. Railroads changed American landscape and even set time zones in 1880s. Dramatic economic growth between 1870 and 1900s led to new inventions, technologies, electric lights, telephone, and so on. Labor conflicts over wages and working conditions arose, but usually big businesses won. Rapid westward expansion after the Revolution. So rapid westward expansion after the Revolution, which was basically the independence of American people from the British, which several events like the Boston Tea Party, the Stamp Act, led up to this revolution. Britain seceded all lands east of the Mississippi River to the United States after the Revolution. 1803. The United States have just purchased France's Louisiana Territory west of the Rocky Mountains. By 1840s, coast-to-coast expansion was claimed as the manifest destiny of the United States. Conflict with indigenous people soon followed after the westward expansion. 1830, Indian Removal Act forced eastern natives to move west of the Mississippi. Thousands died on the Trail of Tears going to Oklahoma. The Mexican-American War of 1845 through 1848, Texas declared independence from Mexico in 1836, but then was annexed by the United States in 1845. U.S.-Mexican conflict over the border ended the resounding U.S. victory. By the Treaty of Guadalupe, United States purchased California, Texas, and New Mexico. In 1850, 2.3 million Europeans migrated to the United States. Latin American migrants mostly worked on agricultural plantations. Italians migrated to Brazil and Argentina, and the Asians migrated to Cuba and the Caribbean sugar fields.